a somatic yoga practice. I'll explain what it is a little bit while we're moving. If you know that your knees are sensitive, you might want to have a blanket handy. We'll do some stuff from kneeling, so we just have it on the side. But we'll start on our backs. We often start on the back because the floor can provide us really good feedback for our movements, and then we can use those same templates that we do on the back later on in our flow when we come to standing. What I want to start with is with a short kind of checking in, tuning in, like a short body scan. So you can choose how you want to have your legs, feet on the mat, or lengthen them out, whatever is more comfortable. Take a little moment, maybe a little wiggle, maybe a little shake, maybe a little sigh. What are some of those ways that your body kind of naturally settles, whether it's through movement, through sound, through breath? Give it a moment to notice what's in the foreground. So we are all practicing in the morning time. How are you waking up? How are you beginning into your day? What signals and messages can you sense from the body or the mind? How is your mind? What are the thoughts? The speed of the mind? So I'll give you another couple of breaths to kind of take a little pre-practice snapshot of the moment, how it shows up in your experience. And having a lot of acceptance to wherever you're at. And that's part of the somatics, is that there's no judgment. There's no real goal, or it's not achievement oriented, but we are here to learn, to become better at feeling and sensing ourselves. And the first movement is a really nice one, like a morning yawn movement. So I'll straighten my legs out. If your legs were straight, they're there already. They can be maybe a little bit wider than the hips, but you can adjust as we begin to move. And I bring my arms up so they find a comfortable width. And then feel your right leg and your right arm. And begin to, nothing leaves the ground, everything is settled on the ground, but the right heel and the right fingertips are going to start to reach away from each other. So the heel reaches towards the foot end of your mat, and the fingertips are going to reach upward above your head. You take a breath in, you feel this expansion through the side body, and then you relax that action. And let's go a few times just to that right side. I'll offer you a few ways to do the movement, but at first just do it on your own. Just see how you can find that reaching and then the letting go. So there's a lot of this pulsation in somatics where we inviting the muscles or groups of muscles or fascial sheaths, connections in the body to stretch out, to lengthen, to find their lengthened position, and then to return to a relaxed position. And then also often we also invite those same muscles to contract, but right now we're just finding the reach. And then I'll give you a little caveat. So do a couple of times the movements where your intention, your mind, your focus is on the extremities, on the heel, on the foot, and on the fingers, reaching away from each other. So the movement is initiated from there, from the distal parts, or from your hand and your foot as they move away from each other. And just do a few of those with that orientation. Again, we don't have to do very many repetitions, but do them slowly enough with a lot of focus. I like to reach on the inhale and return on the exhale. And then pause for a moment. And then bring your left hand kind of onto your right waist, so it kind of wraps around the body, lower rib area. That doesn't have to be precise, but just touching that area. Now imagine as you begin to move your right heel and your left fingertips away from each other, that the movement is initiated from your center, from that waistline. So from the waistline downward and from the waistline upward. And if it doesn't make sense at the first time, then don't worry about it. It's a bit of a nuance, and I'll be offering these from time to time, and you can take them or leave them. But is there a difference in the way your body organizes itself into the movement and the way you experience the movement, where your intention or initiation point has changed? It might be really subtle, it might be quite profound. I'll do just one more from reaching out from the center rather than kind of pulling outward from the distal points, from the extremities. And then I'll relax and I'll take the arms back down for a moment just to notice it. So we haven't done much, but see if you can sense, how do you feel and connect to the right side of your body. So a lot of the somatics is about increasing this inner awareness, our ability to sense ourselves. And then maybe compare it to the left side that hasn't done the movement yet. And then let's repeat the same inquiry for the left side. You could just bring the left arm up, or you could bring both arms up. Doesn't matter. And so begin to move. Maybe at first, just let your body do it without meddling too much. Like, how would your body today find this reach? Through the left heel, left fingertips. What else maybe wants to move? So my head always wants to roll away from that lengthening side. And then maybe do that little experiment where it's my focus, my initiation point are fingers and the heel or the foot moving away from each other. That's where the movement is initiated from. So that just by our mental focus, or where we place our attention, we can change our experience, or we can change how the tissues organize themselves, or how the movement feels. Again, I love to make the movement on the inhale and return to a resting position on the exhale. And then if it made sense to you, move from your center outward. And if it helps, you could bring your left hand. You don't have to, but sometimes the touch is a really good way that helps with proprioception. So another thing that we work with in somatics is the way we kind of sense our body in space and the relationship of different parts of the body to one another. So it's a really important self-regulation tool, our interoception and the proprioception. And then the last movements, kind of imagine like you are a cat or a dog. So not too much mental focus needed, just feeling this yawning from the side of the body, maybe more just focusing on finding a pleasurable way to be in the movement rather than trying to get somewhere. And then again, coming to a rest, coming to a point to feel, maybe bring the arms back, just a couple of moments of inhabiting now. How are you inhabiting that left side? How are you sensing yourself? Maybe take a glimpse of the whole body now, the right and left together, the front and back together. And then I'll slide my feet onto the mat, so they are more or less hip distance, heels more or less under the knees. I'll do a couple of pelvic rock movements where you can take your hands again for that proprioceptive awareness to your hip points, so that you can sense that it's the pelvis that moves, so the lower back presses onto the ground, and I exhale, and the lower back arches away from the ground as I inhale. And move slowly enough. I want you to feel the movement internally. And then play with keeping the movement really watery at first, so not a whole lot of muscular effort. Do a few rounds where it is just very soft, including your jaw and your face. And then you could play with pressing the heels a little bit more onto the ground when you exhale and when you press the lower back onto the ground, and notice what changes. A little bit more muscular effort in the legs, in the inner thighs, in the pelvic floor. And then when you arch, you could drag the heels a little bit towards you. So you feel the lower back maybe a little bit more pronounced, that contraction, that gathering in the lower back. And if that doesn't feel where you're at right now, if you really love the soft version, then stay with that. And I'll just go 1 or 2 more rocks. 1 or 2 more rocks from here. Beautiful. And then settle somewhere in between. And take your arms out from the shoulders. We'll repeat something that we did on Monday. So the other morning class that we do, take your feet maybe tiny bit wider. And this time we're going to drop the knees to the right and then coming back to the center. And we're just going to go to this one side now. So I'll do just a few times again, knees dropping to the right, and you're going to do that in your own way, and then I'm going to just add a few details. But first again, just how does your body do this? Just this one part of the windshield wiper movement, the knees dropping to the right. Does the head want to roll? And then what you could add is when the knees drop to the right, maybe pause for a moment so we find the movement. I'm going to reach now. Before, when we were on the back, we were reaching through the heel. So now bring your attention to your left knee and begin to reach towards the foot end of the mat through your left knee. So it might be that your inner left foot is going to press onto the ground a little bit more. How do you find that movement? Knee pressing away. Your pelvis is going to tilt a little bit more over to the right. Where do you feel this? And then at the same time, you could send your left fingertips upward. So now again, there's this whole left side of the body long. And then on the exhale, the knees return to the center, the arm slides back. And we're again going to go just to the right side. So dropping knees and reaching through that top knee, left fingertips, inhaling, and then returning back to the center. So again, play with this movement. The intensity could be, it could be really soft, or there could be a little bit more pressing down, maybe even a little bit more of a squeeze through that left bum. And where do you feel this? Again, sometimes I use my right hand to feel into the side body, to feel into the waistline, or even the hip on that left side. And I'll go just one more time. Gentle reach, lengthening, breath in, more space through the left side. And then where I will meet you is when your knees have dropped to the right. Just pause there. And now bring your left hand onto your left hip bone. So we're going to keep the pelvis steady, and then slowly I'm going to lift and lower the left knee. Everything else stays as is, but you could change the position of the left foot. So if it feels that it's too far away, you could toe heel it a little bit closer to the right foot, but not touching. They're still quite far apart. Now slow the movement down. And then bring a lot of your mental focus now into that left hip socket. So the knee is lifting, and you're going to find how far it can lift without there being any pinching or pain in that left hip socket. And then the knee is going to descend down towards the ground, and same thing, only so far that nothing complains. So I need to slow the movement down in order to fully feel. And this is a wee bit of like a mobility work. So I'm moving actively. The thigh bone is moving in the hip socket. And I want to find this really kind of easy, effortless, smooth rotation movement in my hip socket while my pelvis stays steady, while my jaw stays relaxed. And this one doesn't have to be done to your breath. So we'll go a few more times. internal and external rotation in the left hip socket. Just maybe one more time. Beautiful. And then next time when the knee begins to lift, return back to the center. Let's take a little pause, maybe let the knees drop against each other just to notice. So we have these little moments of, like we would do in yin practice, of rebound, of taking a moment to just notice the effect, to feel, let everything settle. Give it one more breath in. Give it one more breath out. And then we'll do those two movements on the opposite side. So I'm going to take the knees apart again, feet possibly apart again, arms can spread out from the shoulders. So we do the knees dropping to the left and then back to the center, right, at first. And at first I'll give you no instruction. So you're going to just let your body do it. So again, how does it feel today to do? Is it going to be slower or faster? Is there more muscular effort, or are you able to really let go into gravity? And then at any point, add the reaching action. So when the knees drop to the left, this time it's the right knee that's going to reach towards the foot end of the mat. And again, play how it comes in your experience. Do you focus on the knee reaching? Or do you focus on the right inner foot, the big toe side of the foot pressing down? Where is that initiation point that really works for you, where you can find the movement most effortlessly? And then optional add-on is the right arm reaching upwards, so you're connecting the upper and the lower body and creating this whole stream of movement that streams from the center upward and downward, that connects the lower body to the upper, feeling the effect from the shoulder to the waist to the hip. Again, the breath pattern, try it out, see if it works for you, would be to go into the movement on the inhale and then to return to that resting or that starting position on the exhale. And then I'll go one more round. And then where I'll meet you is when the knees have dropped over to the left. Again, the hands on the hip bones are optional, but sometimes it just can help, again, with proprioception, to feel that my hips are going to stay steady, or my pelvis actually is going to stay steady, as my right knee is going to lift and lower. And find the position for the right foot that works for your body. So you could toe heel it closer, you could toe heel it further away, you could try different positions. And move slowly enough so that you can sense the hip, the movement in the hip socket. Is it different from the other? What can you sense? Move slowly enough. A couple of more rounds. Perfect. And then next time when the knee begins to lift, bring your pelvis back, bring both knees back. Maybe again, rest the knees against each other for a moment. And let your attention stay inward. Whether it moves more locally at first to the area that was moving, that could be one option. And then also this ability to let our attention zoom out and feel the whole body as well. What else do you notice? Give it one more breath here on the ground. And then for our transition to upward today, we're going to bring the knees to the chest. So you're going to bring your right hand onto your right knee and left hand onto your left knee. First, you could just rock on the back just a little bit as you hug the knees in. But then at one point, let yourself roll over onto your left side, head, legs, everything. And then begin to lift your right knee, so as if there is something inflating between the two thighs. And then that movement is going to at one point drag the pelvis to the center and then roll you over to the opposite side. So again, one movement initiates. So from the right side, it's the left thigh lifting that initiates. And then there's like this kinetic chain that moves through the joints and rolls you for the opposite side. Do a few times and see again how you can roll into gravity, letting the head follow the movement, finding softness and ease. Just a few times as our transition to upright. And then you can pick a side, whichever side you want. So next time when you roll to one side, how can you press the ground to get yourself upright to seated? Letting the head kind of be the last that lifts. And then as you come to your seat, take your hands back behind you, lean back onto the hands. So we'll just experiment that same movement now from this perspective. So we're going to take the feet a little bit wider. We're going to drop the knees over to the right. Let's drop over to the right. I'll mirror you, maybe a little bit easier. You can play with the distance of the legs. You can play with how far back or how forward you are. And then begin to lift and lower the left knee. So it's the same movement that we did on the back, but now you're going to do it from seated. And I'm going to feel, again, a comfortable range, how far I can lift it. And then how far I can lower. Well, lowering is the ground is going to meet you, possibly. And go just a few more times. And then next time when the right knee is going to lift, that's your left knee is going to lift, you're going to let that kinetic change so it comes to the end range. It's going to bring the pelvis along, and then that's the movement that's going to bring you to the opposite side. And then from here, it's the right knee that's going to lift and lower. So again, I'm keeping my pelvis steady, and I'm trying to feel that it is just that thigh bone that is moving in the hip socket. Don't rush it. Feel that end range, no pinching, so then just two less. Learn about your own hip. And you actively moving that thigh. So using the muscles. Good. Excellent. One more round. Beautiful. And then coming back through the center. And here's our little play of the day. So I try to include that a little bit each and every time. So we're going to take the legs over to one side. So let's say we start taking them over to the right side. And then what we're going to do is you're going to now lift that right leg. And you're going to bring it up to the center. And first the hands at the back. And then the right leg is going to lift as well. And then you're going to swing them over to the opposite side. Actually, let's do both legs at the same time. It's easier. So you're going to lean back. You're going to come like through a boat pose. And then you're going to swing the legs over to the opposite side. So this is where we can start, and this is where you could stay. I'm using my hands to balance as I now take one leg into external rotation, one leg into internal rotation. Option from here would be to try to do this without the hands. So as the legs come, there's a little bit more core. You might be shuffling slightly forward. So if you need to shuffle yourself back, again, so see if you can have a playful attitude with this. And then the next one that I'll add doesn't work for all bodies. Your knees might not like it, so then stay with what you're doing. But let's say my feet are over to my right, my knees are pointing over to the left, and I start to press my shin bones down in order to rise up onto my knees. And then I need to be really active in my hips, hugging the knees towards each other as I return back onto the ground. So this is active hip mobility. Then I'm going to switch the legs over to the other side. I'm going to squeeze the knees towards each other as I rise, so there's full control. And then I'm going to slowly lower with full control. If your knees complain with that, then just stay with just swinging the legs from side to side. As I adjust the microphone, you just go a couple of more times on your own. Active hip work. And then you can choose the side. Next time when your legs are over to the side, starting to walk yourself over to all fours. Taking the hands under the shoulders, taking the knees under the hips, and beginning with a cat and cow movement from here. So from the hips, we're going to come to the spine. And at first it could be inhale, chest lift, sit bones lift, exhale, rounding. But then gradually begin to connect to your spine and just see what movements want to arise. So your spine can move sideways. Maybe you're not focusing on the spine, but you're actually feeling into your rib cage and how your rib basket wants to move. Go a few more rounds, maybe letting the hips move. And those who feel today that you want to move a little bit more dynamically, feel free to take this into a downward facing dog exploration in a similar way, that letting the spine ripple from downward facing dog, letting the heels pedal. For me, the heat is already rising here, so all fours is just fine. Good. And then either from all fours or from downward facing dog, the right foot is going to come to the top of the mat. And those of you who have sensitive knees, you might want to pad the left knee, so the back knee. So my right foot comes forward. I'm going to keep that back knee down. My hands are on the inside. And what I'll start with is just little hip circles or big hip circles. So I'm going to let the hips move to the right, to the back. You go one way. And then you go the opposite way. Excellent. And then starting to find the ground underneath that right foot. So I'm going to bring my hands to either side. So the right hand is on the right side. So the foot has come a little bit more towards the center as I rise up to my kneeling lunge. I'm going to be further back at first, and I'm going to focus on pressing that right foot down onto the ground as I experiment with leaning in. So my right foot is pressing down as I lean in. My right foot is pressing down as I lean back. So I let the hips come a little bit closer towards the ground, but there's full control on that front foot. So I'm in charge and in control when I'm going to start to come up. So I go a few times like that. If you want to add arm movements, you could. We haven't done much for the arms. It could be straight up or cactus arms. And then I'll change the position of the right foot. So I'm going to toe heel it over towards the right so it comes off the mat. It's on my carpet on the right side. And then there's the same movement. So at first I don't use the hands, so I'm just going to lean in, my sit bone, my bum towards that heel, and coming back. So that's why you might want that back knee padded if it complains. And then on this time, the arm movement could be just the left arm rising as you lean and dropping as you go back. And we'll go one more time. Excellent. I'm going to take another step outward. So my right foot is now more in line with my left knee. Doesn't have to be precise. It could be at an angle, but I'm still going to lean over. So I'm going to lean now over towards my right heel. So I'll turn around so you can see. And again, the knee going over the ankle, totally fine, unless your knee complains. And I keep pressing my foot down so there's tone in the muscle. So it's an active movement. And then this time, the left arm can come sideways, so it's more like a lateral stretch as you lean in. So it's almost like a baby Parsva Konasana on this side. And then go one more time. Over to the side. And then back to the center. Now, you could toe heel the foot back to the front, or a little, again, playful challenge, active work for the hip flexors. I'm going to try to balance on that left knee as I lift the right leg, and then bring it back forward. Bringing the hands down, and then either stepping down dog, all fours, whichever your body prefers right now. Do you want to wiggle and move, or find more stillness in the shape? Give it a couple of breaths. And then in your own way, from all fours or from downward facing dog, you're going to switch it around with the left foot coming forward, maybe the right knee padded. Hands on the inside. Your hips are going to make some circles first. So that was our first inquiry into the hips. One way, and then change the circling the opposite way. And then toe heeling that left foot a little bit more towards the center. So we have this lunge where the hands are framing the foot as you rise up. Back knee padded if you need to. And so I'm going to experiment now from this plane, coming straight forward with full control. Pressing that left foot down. Both when I'm coming forward and when I'm coming back. And I'm slowing it down intentionally so that I can feel what's happening in the front foot, in front of that back hip, what's happening in my lower back. Add the arms if you wish. And you could take any shapes. You could let there be a little bit of experimentation here. And then next time when you're out, toe heel the foot just off to the left of your mat. So it comes onto your floor, onto your carpet. And so there's a little bit more of this diagonal. And so you'll see that the way I implement the somatic approach then into the yoga postures is I want to do different joint angles. I don't want to do all my lunges, 100 of them, just on this plane. I want to try different joint angles for that hip. And then last one was where the foot went out to the side like you're in a baby warrior 2 shape. And again, just leaning in the whole time, you're in charge, in control of the movement. So I'm pressing the foot down. At any point, I can start to back off, right? And then the arm, we found the lateral line more. We found again that reaching from the waist. And then see if you can sense, like we did in the beginning, is the reaching from the fingertips? How does that feel? Or is the reaching from the waistline, downward and upward, from center outward? And I'll do one more. And again, just feels kind of appropriate for and safest to you. Does it feel okay for you to play a little bit, balancing on that right knee? I know it's awkward, but sometimes I intentionally bring some new stimulation in. That's how I stay resilient, bringing the hands down. And then once more, we take a downward facing dog, or you could stay on all fours. You could stay closer to the ground. Less effort. Couple of more breaths. Beautiful. And then just a short visit of plank pose. When you come forward, your shoulders come on top of your wrists. Just the moment of letting your upper back get broad, looking slightly forward. At any point, bring the knees down when it feels too much. Give it one more breath here. And then we'll slowly lower down onto the ground. You can drop the knees. Take a little breather where you bring the hands under your forehead when you wiggle your tail a little bit. And then as your hands are under the forehead, that's our kind of starting position for a back bend. So I have my right hand on top and the forehead is on the back of the right hand. And then when I start to lift on the inhale, it's as if my forehead is glued to the back of that hand. As the forearms lift, the forehead stays on the back of that right hand. That's my inhale. On the exhale, I draw the elbows down to the sides. So my shoulder blades glide down and elbows draw down towards my waistline. And then I bring the hands back. I switch the left hand on top and I exhale and lower. Do that a couple of times where your inhale brings you up, back muscles working. On the exhale, feel that shoulder movement. Press the tops of the feet down. As the hands come back, they can switch. And then as you exhale, you lower, then have a moment on the ground where everything softens. And then one more. You're going to do one more lift, but this time, when you draw the elbows down, you're going to bring the palms down under the shoulders. You're going to either stay here using just your back muscles, or you're going to add a little bit of height, coming into cobra or upward facing dog, whatever your spine wants this morning. You could have the cobra move a little bit. You could have the shoulders move a little bit, feeling into the lower back, breathing into that front body opening. Give it another breath in. Give it another breath out. And then slowly exhale, lower, come back to all fours. Walk your hands under your shoulders and then round your back. Curl your tailbone down. Stay in this rounded back shape and then breathe into that back body space that you just created. So inhale into the back of the lungs. And then exhale, bum back towards the heels. Reach the arms forward. Take a breath in this child's pose. Let the forehead either rest on the ground or on the backs of your hands. Take a slow, steady breath out. Beautiful. And then one last downward facing dog, just for a brief moment. Step your, let's say, left foot forward. We're going to come to wide-legged forward fold. So I'm going to step one foot forward and then walk the hands in between both legs. So you could just choose a foot where you can easily see your screen. So in the forward fold, you can have the hands under the shoulders. We'll do our little gliding from side to side where you bend into your right knee and let the hips drift over towards the right. And then you switch sides. You bend over onto your left side. Go at your own pace. A couple of more times. You could walk the hands with you on the ground, or you could take the hands off the ground, just feeling into the hips here. Again, one more time from this position. Excellent. And then through the center next time, you can keep the hands either under the shoulders or let them move a little bit more back so they're in line with your toes. Let the head move downward towards the ground, so the ground of the head heavy, pointing down towards the ground. Shift your weight forward and back so you kind of feel, where is that feel of, oh, I'm leaning too far forward, oh, I'm leaning too far back, and can you internally find a balance point, centering your weight. And the knees can be soft, of course. Slow your breath down a little bit more, like maybe just 1% more. Or that just helps the focus to come back onto the breath. And finding that you could keep your legs engaged that there's this sense of rootedness, while you let your upper body soften a little bit more, so you feel that your roots can sustain and hold you here. You don't have to over effort. Give it another couple of breaths. Again, hopefully a little bit of cooling effect. And then see if it feels good for a couple of breaths too, if it works for you to walk the arms forward while you keep kind of leaning back through the hips and the heels. Arms could go wider, maybe spider hands. So we can sense again that reaching through the extremities, reaching outward from the center, connecting the upper body and lower body, feeling the sides of the body, but also the center. Give it one more breath. And then slowly walk the hands back under your shoulders, toe heel your feet a little bit closer. So you can use the squat as a way to transition, so bringing your hips down between your heels. If the heels lift off the ground, that's fine. We're just going to stay for a moment, taking a breath in, taking a breath out. And then as you bring your hands back behind you, as you come to your seat, you can now choose to end either in seated meditation or come and lie on your back, on your side. If there's any other way that you want to finish the practice, feel free to do that. If you know that you have time for a longer shavasana, for a longer seated meditation than the couple of minutes that we have left, then also feel free to silence me. So choose a way to end. Maybe it's a posture that you want to take. I'm going to guide you through a still moment. So whether it's lying down or seated, you're going to feel into your physical body, the bones of the body, and finding the most amount of comfort that is available right now, most amount of ease. And then there's a settling downward if you're on the ground. And if you're seated, then again, you're feeling both your roots, but then also a sense of lift up through the spine without any effort. Notice again what's in the foreground. What is the attention kind of gravitating towards? And then see if you remember what grounds you. So do you need to shift your focus intentionally onto something else? A breath, the feel and weight of your body. The feel of the ground underneath. Maybe not forcing the stillness. If it naturally arises, there's a leaning into it. More letting the focus broaden and widen. So there's a sense that anything that's arising is allowed to move through the spacious awareness, the vastness of your awareness. And then, as I said, if you can stay longer, if you want to stay longer, let yourself just stay as you are. If you know that this 45 minutes was what you had, make a slow transition if you are lying on your back. See if you have a moment again, once you seated, to have, like the way we started, to have a moment of noticing what's present now. So we did a before, and now we're doing an after check-in. This is a good place also to set an intention for your day if it naturally arises. And so if there is a gesture that you want to use, hand gesture, a bow, something that seals your practice, bring that in here. And then I say thank you so much for joining me this morning.